You're listening to Fabulous Women on Brooklands Radio.
So, welcome back to Fabulous Women with me, Nikki Rudd, and Jackie Mitchell. We've got Alison Fuller in with us now. And Alison, I've had a look at your website, and I know you're based in Weybridge, aren't you?
I am, yes.
And would you like to tell us a little bit about what you do?
I mainly focus working with women on hormonal-related problems. So that can be anything. It could be from puberty. But it's mainly with fertility, pregnancy and menopause. But stress really causes a great deal of imbalance in our hormonal system. So it doesn't necessarily need to be for those particular reasons. It could just be stress-related issues, really.
And you've got, I love the way that you've sort of come into this. So tell us a little bit about your background and why you've set the business up.
I worked in financial services, so completely different field. I did suffer from anxiety in the past and sort of well-being issues. And that led me to try out some holistic and alternative therapies. That led me to get more and more interested, and before I knew it, I was becoming a therapist, which I didn't initially see which direction I was going to go in. And then I just got very drawn to working with women, and the demand really was there, certainly from the fertility point of view initially and pregnancy, and I just got drawn into it. So it's an area I never expected to go into. But I find myself feeling really passionate about it, and the more I find out about it, the more I seem to, develop further and further. And so here I am, really specialising in an area that I never saw coming, I guess. But
that is completely different from financial services.
So completely different.
Yeah, way out there.
Yeah.
So what treatments do you offer?
Mainly reflexology and abdominal massage. I do other treatments. I do Reiki, for example, and I do other sort of basic neck and back massages as well. But I focus particularly with the reflexology and the abdominal massage to treat for hormonal issues.
Now, is that something that's actually come from sort of Eastern medicine, or reflexology I've had a couple of times, it's sorer than you think it's going to be.
It can be. It probably does depend on the practitioner, really. Mine is more gentle. You tend to find if you're abroad, you will have a much stronger treatment. Over here, we tend to treat probably a bit more cautiously initially and build the treatment up. The abdominal massage is Chinese, so that's from the traditional Chinese medicine, comes under the same bracket as acupuncture and has the same theory really behind that. And some of my reflexology also comes into that. So I've got a traditional Chinese medicine background to some degree, and I incorporate that with all my treatments. So I tend to look at it from that perspective. I'd be looking at it from an energy-based perspective, from a meridian line perspective, and also from an emotional perspective as well.
So for reflexology, is it something that people come to you sort of on a monthly basis or on a weekly basis? Or
it would vary. For general treatments, it would be monthly. Usually like to maintain well-being on a monthly basis. If people are able to come more, that's fantastic. But when we're dealing with fertility, it actually has to start on a weekly basis and then drop into about twice a month and then into a monthly basis. But it does depend what issues are presenting and what we're trying to address. And basically, it does tend to mean that the more you treat, the better and the quicker the results. If somebody were to come, say, once every 6 weeks, we're almost starting again each time, and they're not going to get the benefit. And I've tested that time and time again. And unfortunately, it does mean that the more you come, the more results you will ultimately get.
Okay. And with the abdominal massage, I've never heard of an abdominal massage before. So what it actually is it different to a sort of what we'd think of as a massage?
No,
or?
It's not, funnily enough. I think initially when you first hear about it, and I certainly made the same mistake myself, of thinking that it was going to be something quite weird and wonderful and a bit scary, and that maybe it would make reactions and things happen, and I might feel quite uncomfortable about that. In actual fact, no, it's a normal massage applied to the abdominal area. Yes, there are some techniques, but they don't feel any different to a normal massage. It's just that we've come away, I think, in the Western world from addressing that part of our body, maybe from a sort of delicate point of view, maybe a little bit uncomfortable, maybe a bit embarrassed to have that area worked on. Some people actually just don't like you to touch their stomach, and that's an understandable thing. But it's an area that's been completely missed out. And when you think we house all of our organs, all of our digestive organs, with the exception of our heart and lungs, in this area, as well as in female terms, all our reproductive organs. It's an incredible area to miss and avoid, really. And the benefits can be immediate, which is one thing that's really, really good. With other treatments, the benefits, you tend to build on them and you tend to get them a little bit at a time, and they come gradually. With the abdominal massage, they almost seem to be instant. And if you find stress and discomfort in that area and you work it, you find that you can relieve it almost in one session. It varies slightly, but in a lot of cases the benefit is instant, and there's nothing better than that, really.
No. So that massage, would it be for an hour or?
The whole treatment is an hour, but in all honesty, about 40 to 45 minutes is actual work on the abdominal area. Wow. Initially, you'd have your consultation, and there are a couple of things that go with it as well, just checking on alignment of the body, alignment of the pelvis, before actually kind of diving in. And the massage sort of builds up a bit. You kind of investigate a little bit with your fingers, feeling to see where there might be areas and pockets of stress, and then gradually building it up until the end of the massage is relatively strong, but only working within somebody's comfort levels.
Yeah. So do you find that you're working with women of all ages then for treatments? Yeah,
predominantly. To be honest, I would say most of my clients are somewhere between their 30s and their 50s. But I do have younger clients, do have ladies in their 20s, and I do have people who retired. I think one of my most recent ladies was about 76. So it does vary, but the bulk, particularly because of pregnancy and fertility, come into their 30s. And with menopause, of course, we're looking sort of early 50s, late 40s. But it does vary.
Yeah. So, and for people who are going through sort of fertility treatment, who are looking for some support with it, even if they are having injections or taking other sort of fertility tablets or whatever, how does that work? Do you have to sort of counterbalance them almost with the treatments that you offer?
No, it's not a counterbalance. What actually happens, which is different to working with somebody naturally, or who isn't in assisted reproductive treatment. Working naturally, we're working naturally with their cycle, and we're trying to get the cycle sorted. When somebody's going through assisted fertility, you're very much working with the protocol they're going through. It would be inappropriate to work against that protocol. So it's very important to follow the protocol, and whatever is being I was going to say manipulated, but done to them at the time, if their cycle is being stimulated, which is classically what happens, then you would repeat the process and stimulate at the same time. The differences in the treatment are really, really subtle and very small, but it is important to follow that protocol. And to be honest, you would struggle to override a chemical protocol. You know, it's a strong protocol, so you're supporting it and you're working with it, because that's what is going to take precedent, really.
Yeah. And I think at the moment, I mean, I've worked with a charity that has done some research into infertility, and I couldn't believe it, that it's 1 in 7 couples in the UK that have problems with infertility. I mean, it just absolutely balmy. Do you think that an awful lot of people are being told that they can have sort of children later on, and so are leaving it later and then having to deal with it? Do you think that's maybe...
I don't think they're being told. I think that age definitely plays a part. It's difficult to say exactly what's been going on down. Women, understandably, are having great careers, and they perhaps are leaving fertility to later in their life without realising that it increases the chances of there being problems. We've also got lifestyle to look at, and unfortunately our lifestyles these days are quite chemically based. Even though we like to enjoy ourselves, it does tend to mean that it's at the detriment to our health and our well-being, and that impacts on our cycle. There could be other factors that they've had problems and didn't know, that their body has functioned very, very well, but actually when it's come to actual fertility and reproduction, they didn't realise that there was a bit of a hiccup in the system, and so unfortunately the diagnosis of that has come later, when perhaps if that had been discovered in their 20s, it could have made a difference. So I think there's several factors really, and age is a difficult one to pinpoint. Still quite difficult, even though the research suggests obviously we are much later in our lives when we're entering into looking at starting a family, but it is still quite hard to pinpoint and say exactly what's happening, and there are many cases of unexplained fertility or infertility, in which case we're at a bit of a loss to know exactly what the reason is.
Do you do treatments for men as well?
I do treat men, yes. I didn't want to exclude them. I do treat men. I treat men for a variety of things, mainly stress-based. And in fact, most of our problems are all going to have a stress element to them. I can treat them from a hormonal point of view as well. Stress impacts on the hormonal system hugely, and it's unseen, as most of us know, and unrecognised to a large degree. And men do have hormones too, so yes, they can be treated.
And they're also fairly important in the fertility basis as well.
They're kind of needed.
Yeah, and actually need to be on top form, I should think. Yeah. So you have your clinic in Weybridge?
Yes, I work from home. I'm based at home in Weybridge.
And how do you find that people sort of come across you? Are you do you do quite a lot of local networking, or is it sort of recommendation?
I have done recommendation, I think certainly in the fertility area, recommendation, and menopause area actually. I would say a lot of people find me through the internet. I've got a couple of websites. I do a blog, particularly a blog on the hormonal side. A lot of people find me through that these days, and I think, as we know, people will automatically search for what they want. So a lot of people find me through that, and word of mouth has absolutely built over the last few years. Yeah. So it's a bit of a combination, really.
With people that come to you with having, sort of going through the menopause, because there are different stages of the menopause. Yeah. I have found out because a friend of mine, unfortunately, has had an early menopause and has been absolutely crushed by the fact that she can't have children when she was thinking about starting a family late on in life, admittedly. But what are the issues that most of the women that are coming to you with from that? Is it?
I think, as you say, early menopause is actually becoming. It's increasing, and again, what could be the factor behind that? Presumably our lifestyles and stress, and it's really, really unfortunate. So working with ladies going through that early in life, that there's one side of it, depending on how it affects them, because that could be quite different from a natural menopause at the natural time in life, which tends to be late 40s, early 50s. But across the board, actually, puberty has become younger, earlier, and equally menopause is shifting with that as well. So something is going on in our societies which comes back to lifestyle factors and environment that is changing things. There's no question about that. But working with menopause, really and truly, it's trying to take people through naturally, gradually, trying to even out the bumps and the ups and the downs. For some people, it can be very, very disruptive and unpleasant. Trying to avoid a chemical treatment as such, a drug-type treatment, and trying to ensure that you go through as naturally as you can. It is a natural process, apart from the early menopause, which has obviously been triggered by something. Natural menopause should be over a period of time, and it's just really trying to even it out and help the body go through this change, which is, after all, really a natural thing.
And what are the most common problems?
I would say the most unpleasant problems for a lot of women, hot flushes. Lots of women talk about hot flushes and how embarrassing they feel that they are, and how uncomfortable they are, and how they disrupt their day-to-day lives. You know, they could have anything up between 10 and 20 a day, which can be really uncomfortable. Reducing those greatly helps. And I think the emotional or mood swings, a lot of ladies talk about these emotional bouts that kind of hit them, knock them sideways when they're just not expecting it, and that seems to be a very different pattern of behaviour to how they've been previously, and it's almost something that's completely out of their control, and they might have an emotional episode for no reason at all, no apparent reason, at a time when they just weren't expecting anything, and that again can be really embarrassing, really difficult. They report that relationships become strained, even relationships with their children. Younger children sort of notice difference in the parents, and they might be very irritable, and people find that very hard to cope with when they can't understand the reason and they can't control it. So if we can just reduce the effects of it, it just helps people naturally go through this process more comfortably.
And so how long would somebody come to you to be treated for menopausal
It would absolutely vary, because it would depend where they are in their whole process, if they're right at the very beginning and we suspect they're going into menopause, or whether they're actually in menopause and we're now just getting them through the last stages. Menopause itself can last a couple of years, but you can have a couple of years beforehand in what they call perimenopause. Mm-hmm. So you can be looking at 4 years, maybe 5 years. Other people go through it very quickly, probably start to finish in a couple of years. Some ladies seem to sail through it and have no problems at all. Other ladies seem to have a really, really difficult time, and I think they feel that their personality completely changes and they can't cope with their lives on a day-to-day basis. So it absolutely would depend, but I would treat them initially depending on their symptoms and what they were struggling with, and then see if we can get things to calm down a little bit, and then drop down to once a month if that works for them. But very much you have to work with what's being presented, and because it's an ongoing process, you've kind of got to work with it and see how it presents itself, really, and see how they respond to treatment.
Of course, yes.
So, Alison, we just to round up, what top tips would you give to some of our listeners?
Tips.
Yeah, what are your top tips?
I've got one main top tip, actually, and that is to encourage women to monitor their cycles, just from a well-being point of view. Forget the menopause or forget fertility. Women tend to tell you, oh yeah, well, I'm about 28 days, or I'm about this, or I'm about that, or I'm a bit irregular, and they'll have jotted one thing in their diary. And what I do, and I've done for the last 5 years, and I absolutely suggest that all women do, is monitor on a monthly basis what is going on for them, any kind of problem that they feel during the month, any discomfort, any symptom that they feel they might have, and then basically look for trends in that month and look to see what their cycle is doing. You'll be amazed when you plot it. It's probably quite different to how you thought it was. It's a bit like the diet thing. You know, we think we're not eating that much, and then actually when we write it all down, we discover, you know, more has crept in.
I hate doing that.
Yeah. So I have a very nice monitoring sheet on my website that anybody can download and use, and I just suggest that they use it every month, and you will soon see if that there are problematic times of the month, and if they've got a group of symptoms, because what we're looking for are trends. And when you start to see those things, then you kind of start to get a feel for if there's anything an underlying problem, or whether simply they just need a bit of well-being and a bit of looking after themselves and a bit of care, you know, throughout the month, and keeping an eye on what's going on. But I absolutely would say it's the best thing for anybody to do.
So, and do you want to just give us your website so that people can go and download it? Come and find out a bit more about you.
It's www.alisonfuller.co.uk, and the actual form is on the front page, on the home page. Yes, you'll see.
And I'm presuming the blog is part of the website as well.
You can go to the blog from the website. The blog is www.thehormonaltherapist.co.uk, but you can access it from the website, and you can swap between the two.
That's great. Well, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
And enlightening us. Yeah, and mentioning the diet diary thing again. So, yeah, thanks very much for coming in.
You're listening to Fabulous Women on Brooklands Radio.
So, fascinating stuff. Jackie, did you know any of that?
No, I was just amazed by it all. I learnt such a lot today. You know, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. I think I've got the friend that I've had who's had the early menopause. I mean, just it's been an absolute eye-opener. I had no idea. She was coming up with sort of medical terms that you just think, crikey, what on earth is that all about? And stuff that you just don't see, I think, in sort of women's magazines and things where I think people are getting sort of almost misinformation, I think.
Yes, and people
cases.
don't talk about the menopause, do they? It's sort of, you're pushed under the carpet a lot. You know, they don't discuss it much as well.
No. So thanks for listening today. We've had Heather Harler in to talk about her Catch a Balls programme for young children. Wendy Shamir in from Sesame Internet Marketing, talking about blogging and SEO, and there was a lot there as well, wasn't there?
Amazing. Yeah, mounds of information.
Yeah, and then Alison Fuller in talking about the holistic way that she treats fertility, pregnancy, menopause, and any sort of hormonal imbalances. I think it's quite interesting about fabulous women, but you see, all three of them fabulous, all working with fabulous women, I think, no doubt.
Indeed, absolutely, and also different.
Yeah. So thanks very much for helping me present.
Oh, thank you,
Jackie.
Nikki.
And if you do know of any sort of fabulous women that you would like to get involved with the programme, please do let us know at fabulous@brooklandsradio.co.uk. If you have any questions, sort of look on the website for forthcoming guests. If you've got questions for next week, please do email them in for us. And if you know of any fabulous women, please do. We're always on the lookout for interesting people to come in and talk to us about work life and family issues.
This is Fabulous Women, every Tuesday lunchtime on Brooklands Radio, online community radio for North Surrey. You can email your questions or comments to studio@brooklandsradio.co.uk. We'd love to hear from you, fabulous women.